How's it going, YouTube? We are going to do a session review today. We've got a player who's a regular at 25 cent, 50 cent, PLO6 on GG Poker. Let's jump into it. So we've got 4 tables of action going on. I'm going to switch between them when we get something. And I haven't seen any of these hands yet, so we'll see how it goes. Right, so we're on table 4 right now. We got offsuit aces and make the call. Looks good. Flop middle set, dry board, and check. So if we were playing in a heads up spot, let's say we were playing under the gun versus big blind, and we were the big blind, we had the set of sixes, they check back, and this turn comes out, I would say we have a pretty strong hand, because they raised under the gun, so they should have a tight range. Tight ranges generally won't have 5-4 in them. 5-4 is the nuts. Queens would often bet the flop, and 7s is quite unlikely as well because they raised under the gun. However, we're in a very different spot here because the button has opened. We've decided to call. Got another person behind us. So how strong is our hand really? Not so much, because other people can have those 5-4s. We do not block 5-4 in any way. And because we've got so many cards, we're basically essentially unblocking it. And there's 12 cards here. It's not too far off half the time someone having 5-4. So how are we going to navigate this spot? Weirdly enough, if we were to play as a check and someone was to bet just full pot, we're already questioning whether we should be calling. Luckily here we got a nut gut shot here with 10-9, so if we hit an 8 we hit a higher straight, so we probably don't need to be folding. But let's say we just had the bare sixes, no gut shot, we would be looking at just check folding or directly on this turn. Now, because we can check call our hand, I am actually I think that this would be the best play, because if we bet and we get raised, we're just creating a nightmare situation for us where we've bloated the pot when we don't have the nuts. So yeah, I think this one is a check call, and we are already doing, oh no, good stuff. We're not deviating yet. So I can see why they thought about betting in a heads up spots, much more preferred. But in these button versus blind spots, I think it's a different story. Okay, so rivers come out, and we have, let's have a look. So quad 7s is the nuts, queens second nuts, queen 7 third nuts, 7-6 fourth nuts, 7-3 fifth nuts, 6s 6 nuts. So we have the 6 nuts in a spot where people haven't been really advertising hand strength. I think that the best thing to do here is to let someone make a bluff, and if it goes bet and call, we would actually have to fold. Now let's see what we do. I think that would be my play here, is to check call. Every now and again, you're going to know your opponents enough that, let's say you know that both players are very passive and they won't bluff, then we would go for this smaller sizing. Now, we don't know anything about them, but the only reason I would make this small bet is if I believe my opponents are loose, but also wouldn't bluff. If they are capable of bluffing, we don't want to bet it. We just want to check and then call. So we make a small bet. I'm not the biggest fan of this, but there is potential reasons to do this. So we'll see later on if these are the types of players to do that. And we're up against a bare 7 with mega blockers to the straight. I would be noting two things here. This is clearly a recreational player to be even playing a hand as weak as this post-flop. But then on the turn, they have the perfect hand to bluff the turn with. They have blocked sets of sevens. They have 3 4s, so the likelihood that someone has 5-4 goes really down. So yeah, I've got two things here. They are passive, they are too loose, and they're almost definitely under bluffing every spot. If they're not going to bluff there, I think they're going to under bluff in general. So we've got a lot of notes to put on this player. Hopefully they've made a mental note. Okay, table 1. We have Ace King King, 10-9-5, 2-tone, and we are overcalling. I should say double suited, I guess. We're overcalling. We have one person who's playing basically every hand, 93%, and they're very short. And we got one player who we don't have much info on. They're tagged green. I don't know what green means yet. From the looks of it, white means recreational, but I don't know. Right, so we flop top pair, some backdoor flush draws, 1 nutted, 1 second nutted. And I think this is just a check. And we see a check behind. Okay. I'm expecting quite a lot of bets from the under the gun. So when it checks through, it's definitely time to start thinking about what they could do it with. Unfortunately, it's the queen of diamonds. Now, if the hearts or the spades have come out on the turn, I would be a lot more interested in now trying to take the pot, knowing that we also have some equity. However, given we have a very loose opponent with their stack being quite similar to the pot, I don't think we're gonna have the kind of fold equity we want to make a bet here. And then if we bet over 4 big blinds, we're probably committed against their stack. So that would be terrible. So yeah, again, check. Hoping for a check behind. And then maybe we might be able to do some stuff. Okay, no, they've potted, and we're going to make an easy fold, I think. So let's move over to table 2. Table 2, we have faced a raise from the button, and we're on big blind. We got single suited aces, but they're pretty good ones for single suited. I'm fine with the free bet, especially as they are shorter stacked. Let's make our button bigger stacked. Might be a little bit more difficult, but yeah, I'm still fine with it. We flop top pair and bottom pair. We don't have any backdoor flush draws, but the SPR is 2-1. So in this spot, I think we're just going to have to maximize fold equity, bet the pot button, knowing that if they raise us, we're probably not in great shape, but now we are committed. We're mainly looking at the fold equity side of things because it's a rainbow board and we're out of position. We just want to end decision making at this point. We block the potential for them to have sets. We don't really want to play check call. I think check call is going to lose a lot more money without getting the fold equity that we could have. There are plenty of hands that have us in not amazing shape that might be forced to fold, or at least we're making the situation on later runouts easier to deal with. So my go-to here would be shove basically put our 22 big blinds in and let them decide. We're mainly counting on the fold equity. So let's see what we do here. I think we're on the same page. Yeah. So this is about as loose as I would go here. I would describe this as quite a disgusting spot, but I like the play. We get the snap raise, which is not good, but we shouldn't be too bad. Okay, we got 42%, 43%. At that SPR, we'll have to take it. We're just looking for those fold equity spots, which unfortunately we didn't get. So we'll let it run out. Wants to run it once, which is fine. Oh, this takes a long time. Bink. We run a run of the nuts. Seems all right to me. Right, so we got triple suited, kings and queens. Definitely an easy race from the cutoff. And we get called by the button. Now, this is the same button that made the crazy call on the big blind and then didn't bluff later streets. So we got a opponent who is quite likely on the very loose passive side. Given that, I would not be bluffing my hand here. But once they have shown that they're passive, we can decide whether we have showdown value against them or not. And if we don't, maybe we'll start bluffing later. So I would check here. Nice. Good, good, good. And this would be the point where I start thinking about attacking. So 10-8 has come in. That's the new strong nut hand. Pocket jacks is a fairly strong hand. We don't block either of them that much, but we do have an 8. It's better than nothing. And we have the gut shot with king, queen. My play here, given I know how passive they are, would be a medium to small bet. So somewhere between 1/3 and half pot on the turn, with the intention of betting again on the river. Specifically because I think they're very loose and they're very passive. So what we can get is quite a lot of calls on the turn that will then give up on the river. That's what I would go for. I don't mind larger bets as well. That's fine. That's just a difference of style. The larger bet means that you can't just blindly barrel every river though. So once we've gone this size, if the river comes an ace, a jack, a 9 or a 7, I think all of those become spots where we'd have to slow down. But we take it down, that's great. Okay, so table 2, we've got ace, king, jack 10, 9, 7. We are re-raised under the gun. And the loose opponent in the small blind has called. We have the nut flush and jack 7. Okay, so this is actually a spot where I would play a little bit differently, and I'll try and explain why. We have an opponent who we've just doubled up off of them. They're playing quite loose. The icicle sign shows that they have been losing recently, including the hand that we just had. We have the nut flush draw. The nut flush. We do not block straight flushes, which, I mean, it sounds crazy to even think about that as something. But yeah, you sometimes have to think about that in 6 card. Crazy, I know. We have top and bottom 2 pair. But most importantly, out of all of these three things, is that we have the king of spades alongside the ace of spades. So the main hand type that we would be trying to get 3 streets of value from is going to be the king high flushes normally when we have the nut flush. If we have the king high flush ourselves, it's less likely to happen. Once we have 2 pair backup as well, so that the only bad turn card is an 8, I think we can look at checking this back and hoping that they do something silly, or let them catch up in some way. So if we directly bet on the flop, we're probably going to get 1 street from flushes. If we check back and then bet turn and then bet river, we're more likely to get 2 streets because they're more likely to disregard what you're saying. You can also go for large sizings as well. So you could go half pot on the turn or more and then pot the river, and you will be looked up by the lower flushes. And then we are protected unless an 8 comes out. Even in this situation of an 8, we do have showdown value, so we're just trying to get to showdown when that happens. So yeah, that's how I would play. There's nothing particularly wrong with betting like you did. So you bet, and then you've now had the unfortunate situation of filling up with Jack 7. Given that you again have the ace of spades and the king of spades, this again would be a spot I would check behind now. So we'll see what you do. I don't really like the half pot bet because the only hand that you are building value against is pocket 8 full houses, I would say. Maybe some pocket 7 full houses, but you only got 1 combo of that after you've got the 7. There's not too many bad rivers. So an ace is fine, a king is fine, a queen isn't great, a 10 is fine, a 9 is fine. So yeah, an 8 is okay as well. So yeah, I would play again in the more passive way compared to you. But we do get called. What have we got called by? So now we got to think about what can we get value from on the river. 8s and 7s are the only things I can see that we can get value from on the river. Given that, what sizing do we think a recreational will call with 7s or 8s? I think we can go somewhere in between half pot and 2/3 pot. Basically, we're just trying to aim to get the max against what I would perceive as quite a tight range. And if we get check raised, I'm out of there so fast you will not believe, because if they had a straight flush, they'd play it the same way. And if they had Jack 8, I think they're going to let us know. I just don't think people are going to turn jacks into bluffs on the lower stakes, so we don't have to worry about that. So I think the pot sizing is just going to be not going to get called enough. They might every now and again get curious with 8s, but I think the smaller size is just going to get looked up way more. 67 or 50% pot, I'll go with them. I just don't think this is going to get called by worse enough. I think this is going to get folded too much. So they're giving it some real thought, but we don't get anything, which is a shame. Okay, so we're looking at table 3 here, and we've got a min raise, and we have a very connected hand in the small blind. So when our opponent generally raises under the gun, we want to be very tight from the small blind. We don't want to play much more than 15% of hands, generally speaking. Now, we have a hand that I would consider as very playable in heads-up situations, not as playable in multi-way, because In multi-way, if you do hit a straight, you often want something else in order to start bloating the pot. You can get it in spots multi-way where you have flopped the nuts along with one or two other people and have under 30% equity. We want to avoid that, obviously. But heads up, it often is totally fine to play. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the sizings that they used. Now, if our opponent is always using this sizing, I think that we're going to have a much more tough spot than what I think actually happens. From my experience, people who are min raising from this position and not for a reason, like they're a short stacker or there's a short stacker behind, like genuine reasons, they are often min raising some hands and pot raising others. The ones that they pot raise are normally stronger. So if we like cap our opponent's range, our hand naturally becomes much more playable, much stronger. So what I liked about the our regular in this spot is they knew that this might be a spot to attack them. The cool thing here is we can represent a lot of boards that we would miss entirely, like ace high boards, king high boards even. We just miss them. And then all of the other board types that we often miss ourselves, we will hit with this. So I really like the thought process here of thinking about free betting. That's what I would do. We went for a call, which I don't really like because we got a loose guy behind in the big blind, who's I think is going to be quite likely to call this. I think they're probably going to call like what 80% of hands here. They're just going to look at the price and go, how can I fold? Let's see if I get proved wrong. That would be funny, wouldn't it? Oh, he's thinking, oh, okay, I get proved wrong. There we go. Anyway, 80% of the time it works every time, right? Okay, so we have decided to call, and then we decide to lead out this board. We have a queen, that's good. We have cards that wrap around the queen and the 7 quite hard. So a lot of cards start to bring us a lot of equity on turns and rivers. We can't really represent having many 7s or 2s, but neither can our opponent. I just think that range-wise, we shouldn't be doing this. But for the same reasons that I want to free bet against it, the min raise, the same reasons that donking is probably fine. Because most people who are min raising have the stronger hands in the pot raise. So I am fine with the donk. I'm fine with a check. Let's see what they do. I'm going to presume it won't get through yet, but later on it might do. So turn pairs the board. It's okay for our leading range because we're going to have some queen 7s in there. We're going to have queens in there. So I think we can continue betting. The question is, if we continue betting, are we going to get hands that are better than us to fold yet? And my assumption is no, but our range is quite happy to do it. So I think what we can do is essentially range bet for a small size with the planned intention of, as long as the river doesn't come a king or an ace, we're going again. Essentially no matter what. So here I would make it, I'll just use the 33% pot sizing. You could go 25% pot, like same thing really. I'm not expecting the folds yet, but on the river I am going to be trying to get the ace queens to fold, the kings to fold, the aces to fold. right? So we're really looking for no king, no ace rivers to continue with, and we do a lot of barreling. And I'm not expecting much raises. Right, so he's decided to go for quite a large turn size, which I don't like, because now if we are deciding to... We don't really change... Okay, so we might get ace queen to fold. We might get kings to fold, and we might get aces to fold. The thing is, once you've made this bet, similar to the other one, actually, once you've made a bet of this sizing, it becomes much harder to figure out what we want to barrel the river with, because now you've diluted, you've strengthened their calling range. So the river bet was less likely to get through. When you make this sizing as well, they're not going to raise with a hand like Queen 7. Now they're just going to call it down. We don't like that. I would much prefer to bet 1/3 and then just get raised because they got Queen 7 and we can just get out of there. Yeah. But we do get the fold, so that's nice. If they had a 7 themselves, we're also in a spot where they might just end up not believing us or believing us, and I don't think it would change too much depending on the turn size. So I would prefer to go small. Yes, I'm going to get hands like ace queen to call. I'm going to get hands like kings to call. I'm going to get hands like aces to call. But I think they're all going to fold to the river when we put on max pressure, which is what I'll do. Okay, so table 4, we now got aces. Quite a nice rundown with them. So we're going to play that, and we got the loose passive guy in our pot. And unfortunately, we've basically bricked, so we're just going to fold, right? Good. All right, we've now got double suited aces, quite connected from the cutoff. Presume we're going to get some action from the big blind. Let's see. Because they are quite active. Okay, and we've flopped somewhat interesting. We have an idiot end wrap. So if a 10 comes, we got Jack 7, which is the second nuts. That's not so bad. If a Jack comes, we don't have a straight. If a 7 comes, we have the worst straight. If a 6 comes, we have the worst straight. And if a 5 comes, we have the nut straight. Okay, so it's been checked to us. So we don't have the 8, the 9, or the 2. We've got aces, which is very unlikely to have much showdown value. And we got this wrap. I'm actually not that upset about the idea of betting. I would lose the idea of betting a lot if they were someone who's quite aggressive against c-bets. So as soon as I know that they're comfortable to check raise, I would not be betting this. But for the most part, from what I know on lower stakes games in general, we can get away with being a bit more on the aggressive side. They're just not check raising enough. So I wouldn't mind a bet here. I honestly don't care what sizing scheme you use. That's down to you. I think we can make something work on any sizing scheme. But we decided to go with check, which would be my default game in higher stakes games. So that's good. And we turn the nuts, which is amazing. And it checks to us. We do not have a 9 and 8, things like this, like I said before. And I don't think we would get much credit for having 7-6. So I would like a delay bet of pot sizing. I want us to say we have 7-6 and for them to not believe us. That's how I want to play this spot. You're going with 75% pot, which is fine. I think we can just get away with betting the full pot. Like, look at the speed at which they called there. They're just like, no, I don't believe you. I think pot would do the same. So I just get an extra few big blinds with the nuts. Sounds good to me. And the river has just completely bricked everything. I would generally presume that because we do not have a king, we do not have a 9, we do not have an 8, I think that we can go big here and get called by people, especially if they have a 7 or a 6 in their hand. They might look us up quite loose here. So I'll take advantage of that and just bet pot. I like it. Sometimes they're going to believe, sometimes they're not. Now the quick call from my shoes is more likely the heart draws. So probably not going to get called that often. But if they do have a king 9 or better, you are going to get some calls every now and again. All right, so down to... Oh, we've got another hand here. So straight afterwards, we've got ace, queen, jack, 6-5-3. These types of hands, when I was first into 6-card, I didn't realize that they were how strong they actually were. They are pretty useful, pretty strong in general. We have completely whiffed this board though, so we just want to be checking, giving up if someone bets. But we can see how that goes. Okay, king turn. We don't have a king. We don't have an 8. We don't have a 4. Not a spot I want to be bluffing. There really isn't many rivers I'd bluff either. Now we got showdown value with the 6-5. We don't block king 8, king 7, king 4, 8, 7s or 4s. So I like the fold. Good disciplined fold. Happy with that. Okay. So down on table 3, we've got triple suited kings. Very nice hand under the gun. Oh, and it gets even better because we flop top set. It's a dry top set, and our opponent doesn't have a full stack. They're short stacking. Right, let's think about this. So betting obviously can't be terrible because there are plenty of draws there, and we're unblocking a lot of them. So if we know our opponent is passive and they don't really like betting much, we need to bet ourselves. Okay? So this would be a good time to have people labeled as like how aggressive or passive they are. I don't really know what your labels are, but I'm hoping that you would be able to know that. So in this case, I would say that most games, lower stakes, are quite passive with some crazy people mixed in. So if you know this opponent is on the crazy side, this is a check and we check jam on them. If you don't know them, I will go with they're more on the passive side and we just want to build the pot here. Don't allow them free cards to improve to straights or flushes. So we decided to check. Now, just because I wouldn't do that doesn't mean it's bad. Especially if this person is a crazy, then that's a good thing to do. We get the bet. That's very nice. Now we can basically put all the chips in without any tough decisions now. So that's good. Nice hand. And we're up against nut flush draw, slightly ahead with the ace jack. Yeah, nice hand. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with either play. It's just more you need to know what your opponents are like, what they're thinking. All right, unfortunately we didn't win that, but it is what it is. Okay, so down to table 4, we were in the big blind and the passive guy under the gun limped. We got an over limp and the small blind completed. Checks all the way through. We now have the second nuts with 3 diamonds, and I like the check. I'm fine with the check. That's good. And it checks through again. So we got a problem here because we have a spot where no one has said they've got the nuts. We have the second nuts, but we block the third nuts. So the likelihood that we can get value from flushes should be low, but we are playing low stakes, and we have one person in here who has been very passive, and that is the under the gun player. So generally speaking, I would say this is the perfect type of hand to check, let someone bluff, let someone do something stupid. But we have someone who has been very passive and very loose. So I think I would actually ditch that idea and go for some thin value. What sizing would I use? I don't think. I mean, half pot's okay. Yeah, it just needs to be half pot or less. 1/3 is good. Yeah. And we just have to hope that they're just like non-believer. They've got a bunch of diamonds in their hand. They just don't believe kind of spot, really. Given how wide they are, they're more likely to have hands that have like 4 diamonds in them. And if that is the case, we can get called. Yeah, it generally speaking though, I would let this as a check and just hope someone has the king of diamonds and just decides to mash the pot. I think that'll get more money. But in that instance, I like the bet more. So well played. It's going really well so far. Very impressive. Right, so now we've got blind v blind against the passive opponent. Often in this situation, I don't mind betting. I would bet here more than check because I have the jack. I have 9-8. And if I do check and they bet, we're probably going to have to fold, but we had some okay equity. We might have had the best hand. Our draw might be live. Our 8 redraw might be live. Just not quite good enough to check call kind of spot. So I prefer betting. However, we got someone who we know is less likely to bluff, probably under bluffing. And is fairly loose. So again, this is me making a deviation based on the player rather than playing like theoretical. So I like the check specifically for that reason. And once they have checked, now this turn has basically killed the showdown value of our hand. We can decide to now put on the pressure for our opponent, knowing that we're going to make it hard for them to even call flushes if we bet now and then bet the river. We're not going to blindly bet every river, but in general, I would be betting here. Okay, so we checked. I don't like the check because now we just have to check fold, and I think we can win this pot quite often by being aggressive here. I think we're going to get at least 40% folds directly on the flop, and then probably over 50% folds on the river. So I would just be piling on the aggression. Now that they've made this small bet, I'm out of there. I'm absolutely out of there. Just because we know they're kind of under bluffing, they're kind of passive, they're kind of loose. They might have hands like flushes, betting it like this. That's true, but they also might be sticky with them now that they've bet. So yeah, let's just get out of there. Don't do anything silly. Good. That's the fold button. Good. Yep. Right, so we got the loose guy on the button again. And we have triple suited ace, king, jack, sixes, and 4. I like to free bet. I think our hand's good enough. And we flop middle set, dry board. How do we want to go about this? So I think check jamming is fine. I think betting is okay as well. So how do we want to split this up? I think I prefer checking because then that allows someone with a queen in their hand to think about betting, where we are doing really well against them, and then they might end up bet calling because they feel like they're committed or whatever. There's a lot of not great turns and rivers for us. Maybe not so much bad turns, but bad rivers. Yeah, I would go for a check raise, but I think both are totally fine. We go with a smaller sizing. I like the smaller sizing on the rainbow boards. Forces them to have to defend wider. We get a fast raise. I don't think we can really do anything other than just get it in. Every now and again, they're going to have queens, but I don't really think there's much we can do about it. The small raise size, to me, doesn't seem like queens. I think it's going to have some like weird 2-pair type hands and like draws and stuff, I think, more than queens. I think queens is more likely to just be like full pot, in my opinion. So we do get it in, and we are up against queens with the 4-3-2. Okay, so now I can see why he made the small raise. He's protected on all fronts. Yeah, I think this is just an unfortunate caller here. I think both of us would have got stacks in on the flop, and that's that. They got quads. I don't think we're going to beat quads. Okay, we got a squeeze situation. Okay, so one thing that I will touch on, first of all, is some players, specifically more in 4-card and 5-card than 6-card, when they raise, there's a call, there's a recall, and we shove. Quite a lot of players will just want to be getting in from the undergun's perspective. We have created a situation where we can't back raise. If we had made a smaller raise, so if we had made it, let's say you make it 13 big blinds to go, and they shove, when it comes back to us, we can reshove. So I would look to do that in spots like this. Doesn't always work out, but it doesn't really matter anyway. Our hand just wants to build the pot because it's a nice hand. But if you can just like force people out of the pot because they know you're going to rejam, that's great as well. But yeah, now we got a spot which could potentially be quite hard to play. Not on this flop, it isn't. I don't see any other play than just get it in and hope to get some slightly better, some hands with that have equity against our hand out if we just shove it in. Because at the moment, all we do have is a pair of 10s. So we get 1 fold, that's great. That's already great. We get 2 folds. Okay, that explains why, because they had all the cards. But yeah, still getting 38% there. That's a nice profitable spot because of these 2 folding. Happy with that. We only needed 25% to be profitable there, I think, when they both folded. All right, so we check with our queen high flush draw, get a check through. Okay, so here I much prefer a bet over a check. We have the 9-7, which isn't amazing. We've got the queen high flush draw, isn't amazing. We've got the 4-3, which is useful because the 2 is the nuts. But we don't want to be facing aggression. But we can get plenty of better hands than us to fold if we bet ourselves. And no one's shown us strength enough for us to be that worried about king high flush draws. So I would go with a bet here. Make it 2 big blinds to go. That's what I would do and take it from there. If you do hit your flush or your straight and it isn't nutted, it's a really nice check call spot. And if you do hit the nuts, you can keep barreling. And if scary runouts happen, maybe you'll have to check fold. But yeah, like you can be quite aggressive there. However, now that you've played it as a check, you're now in a tough spot here where I think that you're just going to be losing quite a lot of money long term. Because yes, you've got a lot of outs, but they're non-nutted and you're out of position. So even if you do hit some of your straights or your flush, you can't be that confident where you can just bet yourself because you don't have the position. You don't have the informational advantage that position would give you. So I think that, yes, you probably need to check call more than folding. But if you just bet the turn yourself, you wouldn't be in this kind of mess. At least we got the good thing that it's just a small pot. And now, again, if we were the better and we got the call, there are spots like this where we might be able to fire again and get folds, even though we don't block any of this stuff. It really depends on the opponent. But we could have turned these spots into profitable situations, whereas they can't, right? We can't in this spot. We just have to check fold here now that we've played it more passively. So yeah, we're going to check. I'm going to guess they're going to bet and we're going to fold. So overall, I think our 25-cent, 50-cent regular here played really well. I think there was only a small few differences that I would do in terms of sizings and some range construction where I would play differently. But I think they really could be playing 1-2 and maybe even 2-5 and doing pretty well. So I really am encouraged by how they played and wish them all the best. The reason I'm doing these session review videos is because I want to help as many of you as possible get to a point where it makes financial sense to be checking out the PL06 calculator and looking at getting coaching or coaching for profits. It doesn't really make sense for us over at Grinders Vault to be doing coaching or coaching for profits for people playing low stakes or low stakes. So I'm just going to give out all this info for free. Not a big deal for me. And then hopefully, if it's helped you move up and then you're looking for the next step, what to do, you're going to come and say hello. So, yeah, if you're interested in getting some coaching or coaching for profits and you are playing 50 cent a dollar or higher, it doesn't have to just be PL06. If you want to make the switch from other formats, maybe cash games, maybe tournaments, check out grindersvault.com. We've got the calculator, which is a good self-study tool. But if you're looking for help, like coaching, we also provide that as well. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.